So what's up, everybody? Like I said, I'm Trip Morgan here for Panthers Source, where we go live at least once a week discussing everything Panthers. We do the post-game show during the regular season, where we break down the game immediately following it. We take all y'all's phone calls, your comments. We discuss it all right here on the live show. And obviously this week, the Combine kicks up, free agency's coming up, and Marty Hurney just got reinstated as full-time GM last week, and he's not wasting any time getting things started. He's already made a couple of cuts, veteran cuts, as y'all probably know. If you haven't, I don't know what rock you've been living under in Panthers world, but they cut veteran safety Kurt Coleman, veteran defensive end Charles Johnson, one we kind of all saw coming at the production and PED suspension, and then veteran running back Jonathan Stewart. He was kind of one I was on the fence about. I know a lot of us, we always talked about, his production was down. We felt like it would help with the cap. Obviously, they made that move. Hurney decided to go. I think they tried to work out, reports said they tried to work out a better deal for the team, a more team-friendly deal. Didn't work out. I think Stu ultimately declined is what reports said. No real validity there, but so we won't get into speculation on that. But those three guys have gone. Safety Kurt Coleman was going to count just over $5 million against the cap. His cut saves $2.6 million. Frees up $2.6 million. Defensive end Charles Johnson frees up $3.25 million. Running back Jonathan Stewart freeing up $3.7 million. Now we're waiting to hear on Kurt Coleman if they decide to designate him a post June 1st cut. As I talked with buddy Chris with the Keep Bound In podcast, I think he said it could jump up to about $3.7 million. So that would be really good, because that was one I know some people were on the fence about. Like, if it's only saving $2.5 million, you feel like he's a serviceable player. He's played great with us for the last, with the exception of this year, 2015 and 2016 had really good seasons. And then this year he was not very good at all, no interceptions. So that was something there. But Antonio Carrillo, as they passed through Greenwood, I don't know who you're talking about. Brian Greer's setup looks good. I appreciate it, buddy. So with those cuts, it frees up about $10 million additional dollars for Carolina in their cap space. Going into free, before all these cuts, they were sitting around $20 million according to Spotrac.com. That's who I use for everything. You'll hear me talk about that, and a lot of other people use it. They had us at around $20 million. Now they've got us around 27. It should be somewhere between the range of $27 and $30 million. There's been a lot of speculation on who we're going to go after in free agency, what we're freeing up the money for. Obviously, we have Andrew Norwell. We've talked a lot about him and the potential. You'd love to keep him, but he's going to get paid, and I don't think Carolina can afford to get in that bidding war. And actually, Ron Rivera at the Combine, we're going to get into some of those notes at the Combine today. Rivera was talking about how Norwell, it was going to be tough to keep him. Long story short, we'll read some of those notes that the Charlotte Observer got there today in Indianapolis. And yesterday, speaking on while we're on Norwell, we'll go ahead and hit that, knock that out of the park. Bill Voth from Panthers.com, he doesn't see Norwell coming back. I know we've all discussed we don't see him coming back. And Voth, interestingly enough, we've all talked about Taylor Moton kind of filling that guard, the rookie the Panthers drafted last season. And Voth is saying that the team likes him as a tackle, which is interesting because, we knew he was versatile. We knew he could play both spots. The team drafted him as a tackle. They did say that when they drafted him. But apparently that sounds like that's where they want to keep him. Now, today, Ron Rivera also mentioned that versatility and said that he can play guard, which kind of went against what Voth said. Now, obviously, we're going to go with whatever Ron Rivera says because he's the head coach. But Voth is typically on those kind of things. He kind of knows what he's talking about when it comes to that stuff a lot of the times. But the Panthers also signed Tyler Larson to a 2-year deal before this whole offseason stuff really got started. They signed him to a 2-year deal. He filled in some at center last season for Khalil during injury, but he also played a lot of left. He also filled in at guard and got snaps there towards the end of the season, which might be something to keep an eye on because, Carolina could easily have a rookie starting at guard going into free agency if things keep panning out that way. Antonio Carrillo, Thunderstorms. Oh, yeah, they've been on and off here, man. Appreciate you looking out, though. Hopefully it doesn't hit while I'm doing this and crash my whole house. That would suck, wouldn't it? So there's that. Also, some other quick hits from the combine while we're sitting here talking about it. Let me pull this up. Ron Rivera actually had his presser this morning at 10 a.m. If y'all didn't see, some quick notes he was talking about. He was asked about Cam Newton's knee injury. I know a lot of us were asking, a lot of y'all were asking about that after it was announced he had injured it in that investigation. It did not require knee surgery, so that's good. Luke Kuechly is rehabbing from shoulder surgery, and the team's going to be cautious, as they always are with these kind of injuries, especially with their big players like Luke. And there's also been no timetable for recovery on second-year receiver Curtis Samuel. He had a bad ankle injury in that Dolphins game, Samuel's injury is actually starting to worry me a little bit. It didn't initially when it was announced how it was pretty severe, but the more this goes on, and it's still early in the offseason, obviously, but the more this goes on, it kind of starts to worry me for him, because sometimes these ankle injuries and stuff like that, if they're severe enough, they can linger. And he already battled enough injuries in and out of last season. And apparently, I remember reading a report last season, he kind of had injury issues throughout his college career as well. And so I found that kind of interesting. And then, let's see. Rivera said they were evaluating viable backups this week at the Combine. They're not looking to replace Cam Newton at quarterback. They're looking for a long-term somebody who can develop behind him. They're also in talks on whether or not they're going to keep Derek Anderson. I felt that we should get rid of Derek Anderson this year and kind of move on. Garrett Gilbert looked pretty good to me last year. I thought he was deserving of trying to maybe move up and secure that second spot. Maybe not the second spot, but I felt like he was able to, secure his spot on the practice squad, in which he did. Derek Anderson, I feel like he's 34. I love the guy to death. He's done a lot for this team. He's been a great team player, and he's won us games when Cam's been out. Against the Bucs, he seems to be the Bucs killer for some reason. Every game he comes in and has to start, he's playing against the Bucs. But if the Panthers can find somebody in the draft, it seems they're looking that way. I know the guys over at the Riot Report have been talking about it all off season. They've kind of been on top of that, and they've got some options that could be out there. Y'all should go check that out. But that would be an interesting thing. Keep going back to y'all's comments here. How would you feel if we drafted Lamar Jackson? I like it, but not love it. I don't think we're going to spend that early, Antonio, on Lamar Jackson. If we get, and obviously this is all speculation on my part, but if we go quarterback, I feel like it's going to be like mid to late at least, at the very minimum. This isn't something, it's not a pressing need. Obviously, we have Cam Newton. He's going to be here through 2020, I think is when his contract goes out. And he might play longer than that if he stays healthy. But right now we're fine. You just want to find that guy that can groom behind him. Now, Lamar Jackson, it's interesting having him come in behind Cam Newton, yes. But I think somebody's going to jump in before he ever falls to where we'd like to get somebody. And then you followed up, Ron hinted towards drafting the QB. Yes, I feel like that's going to happen this year. They haven't drafted one in the last 6 years, or what was it? Last 4 or 5 seasons or so, they haven't drafted a QB. So they definitely need to look at getting one at some point to groom, because you don't want to get stuck and Cam leave or get injured and you're stuck with a 36-year-old Derek Anderson. No offense, Derek Anderson, if you're still around then anyway. Let's see. Rivera also said him and Marty Hurney are deciding whether Devin Funchess will be the team's number 1 receiver or number 2 receiver, and will build complementary cores around that decision. This is something else that we've all talked about a lot, is the wide receiver position. Marty Hurney was actually on a radio spot earlier in the week and was talking about, if you follow us on Twitter, it's at PantherSource. He was actually talking earlier in the week about how when they transitioned Devin Funchess and got rid of KB and transitioned him to the X spot for that number 1 role, how well he liked how he grew in that role. And that, to me, and he had some other comments, but it sounded like off of those that he was very satisfied with Funchess at that role, and he would want to kind of build around that. And then Rivera said at the Combine presser this morning that just exactly that. They were still in discussions about it, which is interesting because, if you follow me on Twitter at PantherSource, it's we've been talking the last 2 days, me and some other guys up there, about the possibility of going and getting Sammy Watkins. Now, originally, I know I said that I felt like Watkins was going to be out of range. He could get a lot of money on the open market, and he still very well could. And in case y'all didn't know, these are the top free agent wide receivers right now. Some of the names anyway, 10 of them. And these were the 3 that I liked the most originally, and I still do like these guys. Allen Robinson, it was starting to sound like he was going to get franchise tagged. And now it's being reported the head coach and his combine presser yesterday was saying it was going to be tough. They'd like to see if they can work something out that helps the team out. So that's going to be interesting. Then Marquise Lee and then Paul Richardson was the guy I was really pulling for. But the only thing with Richardson is he is kind of still that Devin Funchess type player. Sammy Watkins, if you've seen any film on him, he would be a perfect complement to Devin Funchess. And if the Carolina, Marty Hurney has talked about getting a veteran, a more veteran type receiver with experience in the NFL, him, Ron Rivera, and Norv Turner, and getting help in that wide receiver room. Now, Rivera hit on that today and was talking about how he'd like to get a Cotchery type presence in the room. Now, Sammy Watkins is only 25, so he's still relatively young. And he doesn't have that Cotchery experience that Koch had when he joined the Panthers in 2015 and helped all that stuff. But his compliment to Devin Funchess, I just feel like would be off the charts. And I feel like a lot of y'all would agree. The speed, the deep threat, bringing back more of what we missed in Ted Ginn. And Curtis Samuel and Damiere Byrd are great deep threats, but they're still very young. If you get a guy like Sammy Watkins, this wide receiver group you just have to have more depth at the position. Obviously, we saw that last year with Byrd and Samuel out. And I just feel like this wide receiver group could really be really strong if you get a guy like Sammy Watkins. Even if you bring in an experienced guy like an Allen Robinson or a Paul Richardson, or you can still hit the draft. My only thing with hitting the draft is I'm worried about having too much youth in the room, and that's exactly what it sounds like Ron Rivera and the rest of the front office is worried about. So that's going to be something to watch. Checking your comments here. Ron said we weren't necessarily looking for a power back. Pryor should be buried under a dumpster. I like John Brown despite injury. Hey, John Brown showed promise a couple seasons ago. I'm not big on him anymore. Pryor, yes, I wouldn't touch him with a 30-foot pole. And you're talking about power backs after releasing Jonathan Stewart, and that's a good point, Antonio. Ron Rivera did say he'd like to get a more dynamic back, similar to Christian McCaffrey, to put back there with him, which just kind of floored me. But it makes sense if you're getting rid of a guy like Stu, and you bring in somebody. Now this is completely out of left field. I'm talking about a guy like Sonny Michel out of I think it's Georgia, and you bring in a guy like him who's got that dynamic capability. I don't think we should spend a draft pick on a running back that early, but I'm just saying, and it opens up even more things in the running and passing games. But then again, you don't have the guy that's going to pound it. I just don't see Christian McCaffrey pounding it through the tackles. I believe he can do it successfully. I don't think he needs to get the 20 to 25 carries a game, kind of similar to the heavy workload Stu would get there. Do you think we need Jarvis Landry, Chaz Pender? No, I don't, and I really just wouldn't want to get into that contract at all. We can't afford that. We've already got something else we got to hit on is the kicker situation with Graham Gano, Chaz. So Jacob Brock, if Danny Amendola comes available, I feel like he could help us out as well. That's not out of the question. And Vincent Richardson, actually, him and Josh Klein from the Raw Reporter down there at the Combine, and he brought up a name today that I had completely forgot about and kind of makes sense, is Stevie Johnson. He's the former Bills receiver. You might remember him from 2013. He caught that game-winning touchdown from Jay Manuel in the corner of the end zone when Josh Norman blew coverage. But and he also played in San Diego. Now, that's interesting because he has that veteran presence, and he's kind of fills a possession-type role that we don't really have. I don't consider Devin Funchess a possession-type receiver. I think he's got more speed. He can stretch the field. He can do a lot of the things. He's really smooth and fluid. And then, of course, Curtis Samuel and Damiere Byrd are not. But Stevie Johnson would kind of fit that role, but he has battled injuries, so that's one thing that's kind of scary. But he would be affordable, so I thought that was an interesting name I hadn't thought about in that situation. And going back, we'll go right on to the cap here. Before we do, y'all be sure to go ahead and like and follow us right here on Facebook, and share this. Jump in the comments, discuss. Look, the phone number I'll post up here in a second. I'll get that out to y'all, and you can start calling in. I'll take live phone calls. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about right here on the air. But you can follow us on Twitter at PantherSource, and then on YouTube at PantherSource. It's all there. It's all the same at PantherSource. So y'all be sure to do that. And I'll go ahead and get this number up here so y'all can. Boom. There you go. We got Antonio Carrera. We got 2 Landrys. See, I disagree there because Landry's been a very short yards per catch receiver. Hasn't necessarily been a huge deep threat. Not that he can. He hasn't had great quarterback play either, but there's that. And on to Graham Gano, like I was talking about earlier, kind of mentioned Graham Gano is obviously set to be a free agent. We talked about how Dave Gettleman's in New York with the Giants now, and he's reports say he's ready to pursue Andrew Norwell if he hits free agency. Now reports are saying that Dave Gettleman is ready to go after Graham Gano if he hits free agency. Ron Rivera did state today in his presser at the Combine that Gano is a high priority in re-signing. So they're hoping they can figure something out there. Ron Suckup, Tennessee Titans kicker, just signed about a $4 million annual deal with I think it was like $20 million guaranteed. That's something that would base Graham Gano contract off of. So that's something you might want to consider when thinking about this cap too. If we're at $27 million, you drop 4 or 5 off of that. I don't think Carolina wants. We let Harrison Butker go. We could have had a lot of value there. That was disappointing in the grand scheme of things. But look, Graham Gano led the league in field goal percentage. You can't take that away from him. Will he do it again next year? I couldn't necessarily bet on that, knowing his past experience. But he put up when he had to, and if he can keep it up, he's 30 years old. If he can keep it up throughout that contract, it'll be worth that, $4 million a year, whatever it is. So that's something else to consider. And while we're on Dave Gettleman, I thought this was pretty funny. It's such a Dave Gettleman thing, really. He said at his presser yesterday that he's currently living in his son's basement in New York, even though the Giants have offered to put him up somewhere. That is the most Dave Gettleman thing ever. He's always been a road grinder. He's always, taught hog molly. He's always been straightforward, straight shooter. He's never shot any BS. And he talked about how him and Jerry Richardson just had a disagreement. And when you have a disagreement, sometimes you just have to go your own ways. And after that, he deferred everything. He said, you're going to have to talk to JR about the rest if you want to get into details about it. But I thought that was such a Dave Gettleman thing to say, and to live like. He's lost 30 pounds, actually. And Dave Gettleman also mentioned, talking about the guard market with Andrew Norwell, saying that he thought, a guard was worth $12 million, and even reinforcing the fact even more that he may pursue Andrew Norwell and make him the highest guaranteed paid guard in NFL history. Some more notes from the Combine presser. Sean McDermott and Steve Wilkes both talked yesterday, and they expressed gratitude for Rivera and how much they learned, and how Rivera really lets the assistant coaches kind of mold their own selves and make their own decisions without micromanaging too much, and they felt like it really let them grow into the guys they are today in the head and getting those head coaching jobs. And they both talked about how well Eric Washington would do. And Wilkes even stated that he'll probably do better than I did. And if you've been up here on our post-game show towards the end of the season, you probably know what's coming next. And I really think and I really hope that Eric Washington does do better than Steve Wilkes' system did. I just don't think – I think the personnel hurt us. Talked about it. But, yeah, I think we need to see an improvement from that from the defense there. But anyway, y'all be sure to call in and let's talk. Drop something in the comments if you don't want to get on the air live. Shoot, don't be scared. And then some other notes here I had pulled up. Well, maybe not. Here's that note, Antonio Carrell, on the whole Rivera thing I was talking about. Rivera said replacing veteran power back Jonathan Stewart, who was released Wednesday, with an identical back isn't as much a priority as getting a dynamic back who can run inside and outside. And he actually mentioned North Turner's success with LaDainian Tomlinson in San Diego. Obviously, he had some great years there. LaDainian Tomlinson's a Hall of Famer, so you can't really compare anybody to that, but he's had success with great backs. He had Emmitt Smith. He had LaDainian Tomlinson. So he does have that repertoire. I mean, that he has that experience with backs and dynamic backs on top of that. LT was a special player to watch. So, Antonio Carrell, blitz. Yep. But anyway, so one other thing I wanted to get to tonight I thought was pretty interesting, and we got into a little bit of a Twitter war on this with some people. Just a fun Twitter war. The NFL moved pizza sponsors from Papa John's to Pizza Hut, and there was a lot of hate going out towards Papa John's after this happened in support of Pizza Hut. Now, I like both of them. I mean, if we're chain pizza joints, I love pizza. I think everybody loves pizza. But I felt like there was a lot of hate for Papa John's coming off of that sale, saying, good, Papa John's is trash anyway, Pizza Hut's the king. And I think I disagree. I mean, maybe y'all don't, let me know, but I think I definitely prefer Papa John's out of the two. I mean, I have a Pizza Hut down the road. I actually have to go pick up Papa John's. I have to drive because they don't deliver here. But I think more often than not I end up driving to Papa John's than I do ordering delivery from Pizza Hut. I just feel like the ingredients a little bit better. I mean, fresher ingredients, fresher pizza, right? That's what they say. Antonio, my wife, said hello, Trip. Her name is Andrea. Well, hello, Andrea. I hope I'm saying your name right. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. Anyway, we got into a little bit of a, Den from Keep Pounding got up there and was talking about it. And then I saw some of the guys from WFNZ were getting up there and talking about it. I just felt like Papa John's is better personally, but that's just me. But anyway, guys, so yeah, I mean, there was a lot has gone down this week, especially with the cap. Some more players we could see coming up. You got Russell Shepard is one. Mike Adams, he had a good season, but his age is definitely questionable right now. I've got him kind of on the fence. He was kind of right there with Stu for me just because of his play last year. And if you let go of a guy like Mike Adams, all of a sudden you're really hurting at safety, and you're left with Colin Jones, and he's just not a starter in the NFL. You can't have that. And then it was Mike Adams, Russell Shepard, and then Gene Farrell on Twitter actually said something about possibly working a new contract with Greg Olson, which is interesting because Greg wanted an extension, and if they did get a contract extension with Greg, it could lower his cap hit for this season. But I don't know how they'll view that after the injury he had this year, and how long they would want to, maybe just a 2-year deal or something. But also, while we're on that subject, another free agent target I'd really like to hit is tight end Trey Burton with the Philadelphia Eagles. The kid is very athletic. Sometimes when he's running routes, if you watch his film, he looks more like a wide receiver running routes. Just his nifty moves around defensive players, and then he can win contested catches. I think him, and he'll be affordable, obviously, is the biggest key, but him coming in behind Greg Olson, I think, could be a huge key. Because I know a lot of people talked about drafting Greg Olson's replacement. It's not a strong tight end draft this year like it was last year, but I feel like Trey Burton could be an affordable option, and he could be a really good big pickup for the Carolina Panthers moving forward, grooming behind Greg Olson. He's one of my favorites right now to watch in free agency. So there is that. Antonio Carrell, Papa John's, Panther 7772. Yeah, exactly. And it comes with Panther boxes. So, I mean, who doesn't love that? John Copeland, yeah, I like him. Good to hear you dropping some Panther football knowledge. Thanks, Anthony. I drop what I can. It's fun to talk about. 2 large, 2 toppings, 15.74. I mean, you can't beat it. And I'm sure Pizza Hut will have their own deal this season for Panther stuff, and I'm sure I'll start destroying that like I did Papa John's. But I'm just saying, I think I kind of like Papa John's better. And if I get it from Pizza Hut and they have a deal, it better be in Panther boxes. I don't know if that was some separate contract or if that's just a regional thing for each NFL team for the contract. So, but I would be a Papa John's guy if I had to choose. I'd rather go sit down at a nice known pizza joint and have a legit pizza. But if we're talking chains, that's how we'll go. But anyway, guys, I think that's really about all I had tonight. Just hitting those combine stuff tomorrow. The running backs, you start the drills on the running backs. I think Saturday is wide receivers and quarterbacks, so that'll be something to watch. I'll be trying to keep you updated as much as possible on everything tomorrow, and times and stuff we see like that. So y'all stay tuned right here. I appreciate you tuning in as always. And next week, look, I might even go live again this weekend because there's going to be a lot going on with the combine and stuff, and there'll be plenty to talk about before it gets old. I probably should have went live last night to discuss all these cuts that were going on. But y'all get on that number, save it in your phone, put it Panther Source Show, and call in here next time. I mean, that's what I come up here to do. So y'all be sure to do that. I appreciate you tuning in, and until next time, keep pounding.